My name is Stacy Young. I am a licensed clinical social worker in New York. I own a private practice called 6th Street Wellness. I work with adults and adolescents who are experiencing anxiety, depression, or who have experienced trauma at some point in their life. I serve as a therapist and a social worker to be a resource to the people to get the help that we need so that we can better support our loved ones and make our mental health a priority. Now let's get started. When we're introducing therapy to our adolescent or to a young person, is therapy is not punishment. Therapy is not something because they've done something bad or because they've done something wrong. So that's why it's important sometimes when we see signs of depression, of anxiety, or they're acting out, that we don't panic. Be able to say, you know, I really noticed some things are going on, or hopefully you've had a conversation, they express that they're feeling a lot of emotion. And it's like, hey, therapy, is that something that you'd be willing to give a try? And really giving them some agency and some choice in the matter. Hi, Michael. So we all know bullying is such a hot topic. Unfortunately, it is something that is all too common in schools and in playgrounds and just throughout the course of a young person's life. One of the things that you can do is talk to your child about it. You know, sometimes people have ideas or sometimes people say mean things. Practice responses with them. You can help them anticipate scenarios. You can help them even like role playing. Like, you know, this is some of the things that may happen and this is maybe some good ways to respond. And part of that is to help one build up their confidence, two, so that, you know, if it happens, they're able to immediately recognize like, oh, right, this is bullying. This is what Michael, this is what my dad was talking about. So that, you know, they can just better be aware of how to approach the situation and also hopefully bring it back to you so that you can talk about it. If it's something that's going on and it's gotten really severe and it's really bad, that's when we have to start getting more people involved. If your child is in school or if you are able to have contacts with the other caregivers, sometimes it's best to be able to talk to them. Listen, this is something my child has come home and told me. Can we have a conversation about it and figure out how this can best be addressed? Many times we may need to get the schools involved. This really sometimes needs to be a community approach, especially since you can't be there all the time. And really make it something that the young person or the child doesn't keep to themselves, that, you know what, this isn't something that's supposed to be happening. This is something that's wrong. So we need to speak up about it. We need to be able to talk about it so that you know it's an issue and so that you can raise it to wherever it needs to go in order to get some action taken. So one of the reasons I love working with adolescents is because what stage of life they're in. They really, really are getting to know themselves and really are becoming who they are, and also really, really testing their independence. And so this is really a phase where their emotions are all over the place, their peer relationships are really important to them. If they're moving through high school, they're trying to figure out what their next steps, if college or work. And so some of the things that really come up are just really how to manage this just intense and flush of emotions. And so, you know, it's one of the things that they talk about a lot in like when they're like younger grade school, like kindergarten, like anger, what do you do with it? Sadness, what is it? What do you do with it? And then all of a sudden there are these people, these almost developed people, and they're unsure about what to do with it. Now, anger itself isn't a bad thing, right? It's okay to be angry, but we want to be careful of what we do with our anger, because sometimes if we're really angry, we can hurt someone, whether that's with our words or whether that's physically or whether that's even to ourselves. So that we want to talk about this and so that we can figure out what are best ways to channel it. So one of the things that I think can be really important is to understand that no matter where your child falls, you know, identifying with their gender, especially our young boys, especially young Black boys, they have emotions too. They're allowed to cry. They're allowed to have emotions. That's not something that's reserved only for young girls. Emotions themselves are not the problem. We don't want to think of emotions as a bad thing. We really want to encourage our young boys to cry and not bottle that up so much that, you know, that they do resort to violence later on in their life. Because all of that doesn't just go away. It's not like they stuff it down and it goes away. It starts to come out in other ways. PTSD occurs after someone has experienced an event or a series of events that impacts their ability to function on a day-to-day. It looks a lot like anxiety. Sometimes it's physical symptoms. They can feel really tense and feel really anxious in certain situations. They can become really aggressive or really irritable in situations that feels like that's not something that would normally upset them. They may feel really scared and very withdrawn, and something where it's like you've noticed they're spending more time in the room, they're spending more time alone, they don't like spending time in certain places, they're really resistant to do things. It's time to start thinking like, and asking questions that something may have happened. Sometimes with trauma, we know something has happened because we were there, or it was a big enough event, like a medical situation, a car accident, where we were there, and so we know what's happened. And so we just want to be a lookout if we notice any sort of shifts or sudden changes that have happened. So anxiety can show itself in many different forms. Sometimes it's a bit more visible, where it can look like, your child is really irritable, or they become really, really upset when you ask them questions. They can seem very, very short-tempered. Sometimes it's something where they just are really reluctant to do things that they used to do. Maybe they were on the track team, but they decided, I don't want to do that anymore. You notice them not hanging out with their peers anymore. They've become really withdrawn. If they, all of a sudden are physically ill all the time, if they have stomach aches, if they always have headaches, sometimes we think, oh, it's a stomach problem, or oh, it's a head problem. Or if they just want to lay on the couch and they don't, they're not doing their homework. Sometimes we can say, okay, we take that on as a behavioral issue or a medical issue, and sometimes it is related to anxiety, or they're feeling really anxious about something. So young people can experience abuse in a variety of different types of ways. There's emotional abuse, there's physical abuse, there's sexual abuse. Those are the most common types. And some of the things that we're looking out for, and some of the signs can be really, really, really tough to spot, but we're really looking for just a change in behavior. So if, all of a sudden they become really withdrawn, or if you're noticing any of the other symptoms of depression or anxiety, if you notice they become really nervous or anxious around certain people, those are all things, I wonder what's happening. So if there's someone's house and they don't want to go, or they feel really resistant, or they seem really on edge, right? Like you notice their bodies tense up, or they start acting out, we just want to think, I really wonder if something's happening, or if something has gone on. We can't always rely that they're going to tell us if they've been sexually abused, or if they went somewhere and were physically abused. We also want to look for physical indicators. So, kids will get hurt playing in the playground or playing with friends, right? That's pretty common that they'll come home. But, you really want to notice for bruises that seem like they've been done by an adult, or bruises or like marks on their body that feel like this isn't something from playing. And we can ask questions, and we can talk to them about it. Like, where did this bruise come from? Or like, how did this happen? And we can really assess and just really pay attention to what their reactions are. Because again, some of the signs and symptoms can be really, really tough to recognize. And it's not always something that we can catch right away. If your child is experiencing any of the symptoms, and it doesn't matter their age, their gender, where they grew up, if they're experiencing any of these, it's time to pay attention.